Ever wonder what the deal is with blood types? Like, it's obviously important, but beyond needing the right one for a transfusion, what's the big deal? We're going to find out using this physiology handout from Dr. Rasha Eldeeb.
It's one of those things, we all kind of take for granted, like how our blood just, I don't know, works.
Yeah,
But it's a crazy complicated system.
yeah, for sure. And this deep dive, that's what we're going to get into. All those details about ABO, Rh factor, even that thing, erythroblastosis fetalis. It's a mouthful. Get ready for some serious aha moments, though.
It's the kind of stuff that when you learn about it, you're just like, wow, my body's doing all of that right now.
Right. Okay, so let's start basic. Everyone knows like A, B, and O. But what's actually happening, like at the cellular level?
So imagine your red blood cells, right? And they've got these little, almost like flags on their surface. Those are called antigens.
Okay, antigens, got it.
And the A and B antigens, those are the big ones. They're the ones that determine your ABO blood group.
So it's like a labeling system. These antigens are telling everyone, hey, this is type A blood right here.
Exactly. But there's more. So your plasma, the liquid part of blood, it has these things called antibodies.
Antibodies.
Yeah, think of them like security guards, always patrolling, always ready to, neutralize any blood that's not supposed to be there.
So like a tiny little immune system just for your blood?
That's a great way to think about it. So someone with type A blood, right, they've got A antigens on their red blood cells, but their plasma, it's packed with anti-B antibodies, ready to take out any type B that shows up.
So if I've got type B blood, I've got the B antigens, and my antibodies are on the lookout for type A.
Exactly. It's like a built-in defense system against, incompatible blood. And it gets even more interesting when you think about A, B, and O blood types.
Right, right. AB, they're the universal recipient, if I remember right. They can take any blood type without those antibodies going crazy.
You got it. They have both A and B antigens on their red blood cells, but no anti-A or anti-B antibodies in their plasma. No security guards needed. They're good with everyone.
The VIPs of the blood world.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got type O, the universal donor. What makes them so special? Their red blood cells are basically stealth mode. No A or B antigens. So they can slip past those antibody guards, no problem. Compatible with everyone.
That's why type O is so valuable, especially in emergencies when there's no time to figure out someone's blood type.
Absolutely. It's like the universal key for blood transfusions.
Yeah, and you know what? It's actually pretty common. Around 46% of people have type O blood.
Wow, that's a lot. Okay, but here's a question. We're not born with these antibodies, are we? So where do they come from?
You're right, we're not. And it's a great question. It really shows how adaptable our immune system is. So around 2 to 8 months old, babies actually start making antibodies against the blood group antigens they don't have.
So it's like their immune system is learning, like training to recognize, okay, this is my blood and this is not my blood. Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing. How does the immune system even know about those other blood group antigens? It's not like they're getting, mini transfusions in the womb.
Right. That's what I'm wondering. It's like training for an enemy you haven't met yet.
The thinking is that babies get exposed to similar antigens and bacteria and food, stuff like that.
Oh, interesting.
And the immune system, it sees those kind of lookalikes and thinks, hey, these could be bad guys. So it starts building defenses, which then end up covering those blood group antigens too.
So even the food we eat as babies helps shape our blood group immunity.
Wow, it's amazing how it's all connected.
Right. And we're just getting started. Get ready. Because it turns out there are actually subgroups within blood types, like variations within type A blood.
Wait, subgroups? You mean like A positive and A negative?
Not exactly. This is about the A antigen itself. So we have A1 and A2 subgroups. And the difference is basically how many A antigens are actually on those red blood cells. So it's not just like, is the antigen there or not, but how much of it there is. That's fascinating.
Exactly. A1 is like, I don't know, the overachiever. 1 million copies of the A antigen on each red blood cell. A2 is a little more laid back, about 250,000 copies.
Wow. So even within one blood type, there's all this variation. I'm starting to see why matching blood types for transfusions is so important. It's not just about those 4 letters. It's about all these little differences, too.
Yeah, it's like a puzzle where every piece has to fit just right.
Yeah.
Imagine, giving someone with type A blood a transfusion of type B blood.
It doesn't sound good.
No, it's not.
Huh?
Their anti-B antibodies, they would freak out. They'd see those type B red blood cells like invaders. It'd be a whole thing. Those antibodies would attack, causing the blood to clump together.
Sounds terrifying.
Yeah. So those universal donors and recipients, they really are lifesavers. Type of blood with no A or B antigens, it can slip past the guards. And people with AB blood, they don't have those anti-A or anti-B antibodies, so they're good to go with any blood type.
Wow, our bodies really have this whole system to protect us. It's amazing. But wait, there's more to this blood type story, right? We've got to talk about Rh factor. I know that plays a big role too.
You're right. Rh factor. It's like the other main character in this blood compatibility drama. And you know what? It's named after rhesus monkeys. That's where it was first discovered.
I always wondered where that name came from. So is it like the A and B antigens? Some people have it, some don't.
Exactly. About 85% of people are Rh positive, which
Wow.
means they have the D antigens, the most common one. And then about 15% are Rh negative, so they don't have it.
So we need to consider both ABO and Rh factor when matching blood. It's like a double check to make sure everything's compatible.
You got it. You could have two people with type A blood, but if one's Rh positive and the other's Rh negative, transfusion could still be a problem.
Mm.
But you want to know where things get really interesting? When we start talking about pregnancy.
Okay, so we've got this whole system, right, with the blood groups and Rh factor. And mixing the wrong ones, that's bad news. But how do doctors actually make sure those transfusions are safe? I know Dr. Eldeeb mentioned something about cross-matching tests.
It's like, before you jump out of a plane, you double check your parachute, right?
Right.
Cross-matching, that's the ultimate safety check for transfusions, is making sure the donor's blood and the recipient's blood, they're going to get along.
So it's not just like looking at a blood type card and saying, yep, looks good.
Oh, no, no, no. This is serious stuff. They actually take a little sample of the donor's red blood cells and they mix it with the recipient's plasma.
So it's like little test tube meet and greet.
Exactly. They're looking to see if there's going to be any fireworks, any antibody reactions.
And this is before any blood is transfused.
Always standard procedure.
Yeah.
It's about catching those antibodies that might be lurking in the recipient's plasma, those ones that would attack the donor cells. And then they do the same thing in reverse.
Oh, so they mix the recipient's red blood cells with the donor's plasma.
Yep, just to be extra safe. Double checking both ways.
Talk about attention to detail. That's reassuring. But even with all that testing, are there still risks? With transfusions, I mean.
Unfortunately, yeah. Those big incompatibility reactions, those are the biggest worry for sure. But other things can happen, even when the blood is, perfectly matched.
Like what? I'm curious, especially if it involves, keeping my blood from turning into a microscopic traffic jam.
There are allergic reactions, for one, and those aren't really about the ABO or Rh system. It's other antigens, maybe on the white blood cells or platelets, something like that.
So you could have an allergic reaction even if the blood type is a match.
It's not as common, but it happens. And it can be, mild, like itching, hives, or it can be serious, like, breathing problems. That's why they always do transfusions with, medical supervision, just in case.
Right, of course. And what about, diseases being transmitted through blood? I mean, they do all those tests, but is that still a concern?
It's a good question, and it used to be a much bigger problem for sure. But these days in, developed countries, the risk is super, super low. They have really strict donor screening, and the tests they run on the donated blood are like high tech.
So, like, what kind of diseases are we talking about here?
Well, back in the day, hepatitis was a big one,
Uh-huh.
hepatitis B and C, but now getting those from a transfusion is like incredibly rare. Same with HIV. That used to be a huge worry with transfusions.
That's good to hear. Anything else we should be thinking about? Potential dangers, I mean.
One thing, especially if you're getting a lot of blood, a large volume transfusion, is something called citrate toxicity.
Citrate toxicity. Okay, now that's a new one. What does citrate have to do with blood?
So citrate, it's an anticoagulant, which basically means it stops blood from clotting. They add it to the donated blood so it, doesn't turn into a solid brick while it's being stored.
Okay, makes
And usually our bodies, they can break down citrate, no problem. But if you're getting a massive transfusion, you can end up with too much of it.
so it's like an overload.
Yeah. And that can mess with your body's pH. It's called alkalosis. And even cause hypocalcemia, which is dangerously low calcium levels.
I had no idea. It's incredible, how many things can go wrong, even with something like a blood transfusion.
Right. It shows you how complex our circulatory system is and, how skilled the people who do these transfusions are. It's a balance, right? The benefits of the transfusion, but also the risks.
Yeah, it makes you really appreciate all the advancements in medicine that you can even do this stuff safely. Okay, but you know me, I always want to know more. Let's shift gears a bit. What about those medical legal applications of blood groups that Dr. Eldeeb mentioned? Is that like using blood types to solve crimes?
You're on the right track. Blood typing, it could be a really useful tool in forensic science, yeah.
It makes sense. Like if you find blood at a crime scene, knowing the blood type, that could help narrow down the suspects.
Totally. It's like a real-life CSI episode.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets even more interesting. They also use it for paternity disputes.
Wait, really? How does blood type help figure out who the father of a child is?
Well, remember how we talked about those antigens being inherited?
Okay.
So by looking at the blood types of the mother, the child, and, the alleged father, they can sometimes rule someone out as the biological father.
Oh, so it's not a foolproof way to prove paternity, but it can eliminate some possibilities.
Exactly. Like if the child has a blood type that's just impossible based on the mom and the alleged dad's blood types, then you know something's not adding up.
Blood groups, solving crimes and paternity mysteries. It's amazing how something so, basic can tell us so much.
Right. It really shows you the power of understanding our biology. Makes you wonder what other secrets are hidden in those red blood cells just waiting to be discovered.
Okay, I'm hooked. What else can we uncover on this deep dive? So much cool stuff we've talked about already, right? Those little antigens on our red blood cells, transfusions, even how blood typing helps solve crimes. What else is there? Are there still, mysteries when it comes to blood groups?
Well, some areas are kind of, still being figured out. The science is still developing, but they're definitely interesting to think about.
Ooh, okay, I like where this is going. Developing science, you say?
For example, there's been research into maybe a connection between blood types and personality.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying my blood type could, determine if I'm an introvert or an extrovert, or if I like, I don't know, pineapple on pizza?
Well, it's definitely a hot topic, lots of debate. Some studies have shown maybe some, correlations, like one idea is that people with type A blood are more organized, detail-oriented, that kind of thing, while type B folks might be, I don't know, more creative, free-spirited.
That's wild, but I'm guessing the evidence isn't super strong yet.
Yeah, it's still early. More research is needed before we start, putting people in boxes based on their blood type. It's fun to think about, but we got to remember correlation doesn't mean, cause and effect.
Right, right. So personality profiles, maybe not so much.
Right.
What about diseases? Is there any truth to the idea that certain blood types are linked to, a higher risk of getting sick?
There have been studies, yeah.
Hmm.
Some showing possible links between blood types and things like heart disease or some types of cancer.
So, if I've got type O blood, should I be more worried about heart disease than someone with, say, type AB?
Not necessarily. Those studies, they're often looking at really small differences in risk. And there's so many other things that have a way bigger impact, like your genes, your lifestyle, environment, all that.
Right, so it's not like a guarantee. Having a certain blood type doesn't mean you're definitely going to get a specific disease.
Exactly. It's just one piece of the puzzle. And like I said, more research is needed. The human body is complicated, and we're still learning about it.
True, true. Makes you realize even the things we think we know, like blood, can still be pretty mysterious.
For sure. And the more we learn, the better we can take care of ourselves,
Right.
make good decisions about our health.
Which reminds me, we were talking about Rh incompatibility earlier. Dr. Eldeeb mentioned it's important for, marriage and family planning. Seems like something couples should definitely be aware of.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to talk to a doctor about it, especially for women who are Rh negative and, might have children with a partner who's Rh positive.
So in those cases, what can they do to, reduce the risks during pregnancy?
Prenatal care is key. Regular blood tests, those can check for any signs of problems. And there are preventative measures like those anti-D antibody injections we talked about. Those can really help protect the baby.
It's pretty incredible how much we can do these days to help ensure, healthy pregnancies.
It really is. It's thanks to all those advances in medicine and, all the hard work of healthcare professionals, taking care of moms and babies.
Well, this has been amazing. We started with those little flags on our red blood cells, and now we're talking about, the future of families and all this cutting-edge medical stuff.
It's been fun. It's a good reminder that even the everyday parts of our biology can be super complex and fascinating.
So if someone's listening to this, what's the one thing they should take away?
I'd say it's knowing your blood type. It's not just like trivia. It's important information, especially in an emergency. And it helps you make informed decisions about, your health, family planning, all that.
Like having a secret code to your own body.
Exactly. And it's worth figuring out that code.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power, right? Especially when it comes to our health.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, we encourage everyone to keep learning about this stuff. There's tons of info out there online, libraries, all over.
And hey, if you're feeling inspired, maybe think about donating blood. It's such a simple thing to do, but it can make a huge difference in someone's life.
Every drop counts. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of blood groups. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and hey, maybe even become a blood donor yourself.